There we go. All right. You'll have to forgive me. Unlike my father, I have hair, and so it, throws me off just a tad. So, you always got to start with a joke. I learned that early on. I don't know if he still jokes or not, but I hope he does. There's a power to laughter. That is my name. So if you don't know, a little Hebrew lesson, Isaac means laughter, or the chosen one. I like one a little bit better than the other one, but that's my own thing. But if you don't know me, if you're not Ken and Linda Kaiser, maybe you don't know who I am. They grew up driving me to football practice, so they know me very well. Some of you probably have never seen me before, but I am Pastor Clayton's son and Miss Rebecca's son, or Isaac's mom's son. I don't know what she goes by these days, but yeah, that's what she was all growing up, was Isaac's mom or Anna's mom or whoever's mom. So, if you don't know me, which we've covered, I've kind of done a lot of things the last few years. So if you're like, I know he was doing some hippie thing, and now he's still doing the hippie thing. I am, but officially I worked for a group in Northern California called the Changed Movement. And so Changed is a ministry and human rights advocacy group. So it works to equip pastors, churches, individuals that have walked away from an LGBTQ lifestyle, most of whom have found faith in Jesus, and as a result are living a different lifestyle according to a biblical sexual ethic. And so we work to equip pastors with, hey, what do you do if, these people are going to come into your churches? And how do you reach these people? Or how do you educate your congregation to treat them like regular human beings? Because we're all humans with issues and problems and all sorts of stuff. And then the other side, which is predominantly what I do, works in the government policy side of things. So we work to educate legislators, and then on the state and federal level, as well as local governments, international governments. So we do stuff all over the world. And so I was in Indianapolis this week at a conference that had members of the Trump administration and Speaker Mike Johnson and some other big shot politicians. So it was mostly just me schmoozing people and hoping that they would give me 10 seconds of their time. So that's what I do. These days we're a nonprofit, so we're completely donor funded. So if you're wondering, no, I don't make a ton of money to do this. This is just where the Lord has me. So today I wanted to cover a pretty familiar passage. It's 2 Kings chapter 2. Many of you, maybe you don't know that reference off the top of your head, but it's the transition of the mantle from Elijah to Elisha. And that's one of my favorite chapters of the entire Bible, mostly actually because of the end. There's this weird 3 verses where Elisha gets made fun of for not having hair. And he sicks some bears onto a bunch of kids. And we're not going to talk about that part of it, but I do encourage you to read it if you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's hysterical, in my opinion. I'm sure it was gruesome 1,000 years ago, but I think it's pretty funny. So today, 2 Kings chapter 2, I've entitled this, Pick Up Your Mantles. Pick Up Your Mantles. And it was so funny, right before service, Cam was telling me he had a verse, and he was like, I hope it fits. And I'm like, I think it'll fit. I had no idea what it was, but just his little talk about his grandpa, I'm like, this is pretty fitting, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and just read this passage to you guys, and then we'll get to it. So 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 1, the time had come for the Lord to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elijah and Elisha were traveling from Gilgal, and Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, the Lord is sending me on to Bethel. But Elisha replied, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. Then the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said, do you know that the Lord will take your master away from you today? He said, yes, I know. Shut up, dude. Elijah said to him, Elisha, stay here, the Lord is sending me to Jericho. But Elisha said, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they went to Jericho. Then the sons of the prophets who were in Jericho came up to Elisha and said, do you know that the Lord will take your master away from you today? He said, seriously, man, shut up. Elijah said to him, stay here, the Lord has sent me on to Jordan. But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. 50 men from the sons of the prophets came and stood facing them from a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, struck the waters, which parted to the right and to the left. Then the two of them crossed over onto dry ground. After they had crossed over, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I can do for you before I'm taken away from you." So Elisha answered, "Please, let me inherit 2 shares of your spirit." Elijah replied, "What you have asked is for something difficult. If you see me being taken away from you, you will have it, and if not, you will not." As they continued walking and talking, a chariot of fire with horses of fire suddenly appeared and separated the two of them. Then Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. As Elisha watched, he kept crying out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." Then he never saw Elijah again. He took hold of his own clothes, tore them into 2 pieces. And Elisha picked up the mantle that had fallen off of Elijah, went back, stood on the bank of the Jordan. Then he took his mantle Elijah had dropped, struck the waters. "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" he said. He struck the waters himself, and they parted to the right and to the left, and Elisha crossed over. So there's a few things that I want to talk about in that passage, and the first one is this idea of being faithful to God's calling in your life. Elisha is called to be basically Elijah's assistant for the rest of Elijah's time on earth. And we don't know that Elijah knows that his time's coming up. We can pretty much deduce that he's aware. He's a prophet. He's the prophet of the time. So he's probably in the know, but we don't know that. What we do know is that Elisha seems to know that Elijah's time is coming up. And what we do know is all the other prophets seem to know about it. And at multiple times in verses like 1 through 6, even Elijah is like, "Listen, man, you don't need to keep with me. You've done really good. You should just stay right here. You should stay in Jericho. You should stay in Bethel. You should stay where we've already gone. You don't need to keep coming." And Elisha is so committed to the call of God on his life that he says, "No, as surely as the Lord lives, I will go with you." And because of the place that Elijah has built in Elisha's life as a mentor, as that person that he not only loves and learns from and trusts, he says, "And as surely as you live." His commitment both to God and to the people around him, his own community. I mean, at this point, the two of them are kind of traveling by themselves. They are family. They are community. It's all that they've got. His commitment to his community and to his Lord are the only thing that keep him going, his faithfulness to the call of God on his life. In the meantime, you have all these sons of the prophets. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to that before, but Elijah has set up over the course of his life multiple schools of prophets around Israel to train up young Hebrew men on ways to be prophets of God, ways to hear God, ways to prophesy for their communities. And so he's planted them in several cities around Israel. So in a sense, he's kind of like all of their dad. He's all of their spiritual father. And yet, these dudes who know enough, know his time's coming up, they're like, "Hey, this isn't going to end well for you." They're trying to warn Elisha, "You know he's going to leave you. He's going to desert you. This doesn't end well." And the whole time, Elisha's like, "Get away from me." I mean, how many of us have people like that in our life, right? No, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, whatever you're doing, somebody comes around and they go, "You know, that's probably not going to end very well." You got to stay committed to what you know the Lord has asked you to do. Even in the midst of people around you that may not know what the Lord has asked you to do. They may not know the call of God on your life. And even if they do, perhaps they just can't quite see what the Lord has given you eyes to see. So Elisha stays focused to the calling of God on his life. The second thing is in verses 9 and 10, Elijah's finally given up this idea that Elisha is going to leave him. And so he says, "Okay, well, I guess if you're going to be stuck with me, what can I give you?" Well, They told me I have weird ears, so that makes sense. All right, we're just going to... Let's try that. All right. Anyway, so he says he's got, I know you've got something to ask me before I die. And it's the hair, I'm telling you. It's the hair, it's the ears. Hold on. Just enjoy this side profile of me for a moment. Okay. We're just going to hold it for a second. Maybe it'll learn. Anyway, that clears the air a little bit. You guys are laughing. That's good. I do like laughter. Feel free to, if I say something weird or funny, feel free to laugh at it. I know I'm in Michigan, but I'm used to not being around a bunch of Germans all the time these days. So, Elijah says, all right, if you're going to be with me, what can I give you before I go? And Elisha says, you know what? I need a double portion of your spirit. Now, that might sound a little selfish. Like, how crazy is that? If let's say your grandfather's dying or your father's dying or something like that, and he goes, what can I give you? And you're like, you know what? All the money that you've ever made, go ahead and give me double that. Like, that's kind of an insane request to ask of somebody. But what he knows, what he asks, he knows that Elijah himself cannot grant the request. He knows that it has to come from the Lord, and he knows that he needs a double portion because one won't do. One won't do for the calling that he knows he has on his life. He needs that extra oomph. He knows he needs the Lord to be in his calling. There was some time ago I was in ministry school, and I worked at Kohl's department store at night. It was the only way that I could, afford to live life. So there's this pizza place in Redding, California, where I live, that does, they used to do $1 a slice night for all the college students. And it was the only way that we could eat, really, was Friday night. We could go get a slice of pizza for $1. And in California, that's pretty dang cheap for anything, right? $1 is pretty cheap. And it was good pizza. It wasn't that bad. So it would end at like 11 o'clock. Sorry, this is giving me some issues here. I'm trying not to scream in your ear. Oh, that could work. Okay, yeah. We'll let him do that. This is like Aaron with Moses. This is amazing. Yes. I think so. What do we think? All right, yeah, that's fine. I have used these before, but this one's particularly not liking me. Anyway, so I'm working late night, and the way this $1 slice night thing works is you got to be there before midnight. That's when it cuts off, right? And so I'm working until 11:30. But what I know from weeks of experience is that they stop making pizza at 11. So anything from 11 to midnight is old. It's not old, but it's not hot. It's going to be lukewarm at best. So I'm praying, Lord, and I was trying to work on my self-discipline. So I'd wanted pizza for 2 weeks, and I wouldn't let myself get it. And so finally I was like, okay, Lord, I've wanted it every day for 2 weeks. Can I please go get pizza? And he's like, I didn't tell you not to eat pizza, so feel free to get it. And I'm like, okay. So I tell my boss at work, hey, is there any way that I can get out at 10:45? I know I'm here till 11, I think, or 11:30. And she said, yeah, we're slow. I can let you off. And she's like, actually, I'll let you off at 10:30. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. I'm going to make it where the last pie comes out. It's a 20-minute drive. I'll make it right before. I'll get a slice of hot pizza. That's all I need. So I'm driving my car down the road, and I tell the Lord, I just need one good slice of pizza. And a few seconds pass, and I realize, that's actually not true. One slice of pizza isn't going to fulfill me. That's a pathetic prayer request for one slice. What a poverty mindset. That's like saying, I owe somebody 10 grand. Could you give me 5? You know what I mean? I'm like, that's not going to actually solve my problem. So I think about it for a second, and I go, they're kind of big. 2 slices would actually fulfill me. Like, that's what I need is 2 slices. But then I'm like, I got to be specific. You got to make bold requests, right? You can't just ask for whatever, because oftentimes that's what you get. What you ask for is often what you get. And so I told the Lord, okay, I need 1 slice. I got to know that you're in this. I need 1 slice of pepperoni, and I need 1 slice of Hawaiian. They've got to be different, completely different slices of pizza. So I walk in the door once I get there, just a simple, request in my car. And the lady at the counter, I was wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt. She liked my shirt, and she goes, that's a nice shirt. And I said, well, thank you. You guys got pizza left? And she said, yeah, we do, And she tried to talk to me about my shirt, and I'm like, listen, this is vital. I've driven here for the pizza. I've got no time to chit-chat. And she goes, well, how do you feel about 2 pizzas? And I was like, oh, no, I don't need to buy 2 pizzas. Like, that's way too much pizza. I just came for 2 slices. It's $2. And she goes, no, you don't understand. Somebody called and ordered 2 pizzas, and they just called back and said they can't do it. We've already made them. They're going to come out of the oven in about 30 seconds. And I said, sure, so for free? And she goes, yeah, you can have both of them for free. So I thought, that's cheaper than $2. Yeah, who cares what it is? I'll take it off, So she hands them to me, and I get to the car. I'm so excited. I call my best friend, and I'm like, dude, you'll never guess what happened. I prayed for 2 slices of pizza, and I got 2 whole pizzas. Like, look at what the Lord did 10 times, And he goes, well, what are they? And I said, I don't know. I haven't looked. He goes, well, check them out. Didn't you say you asked for pepperoni and Hawaiian? Like, let's just see. So I popped the first box off, pepperoni. Not a shocker, right? Pepperoni's pretty normal pizza. Second one, Hawaiian. And I'm telling you, I'm crying in my car because what other people just see is pizza. I'm like, holy crap. The Lord heard the smallest little prayer request and gave me 10 times what I'd asked for because I was specific in my request. And that is what Elisha, I believe, is doing to Elijah. He has to know it's not just Elijah giving him his mantle. He has to know it comes from the Lord. And so he's being specific. It has to be double what you had, because I got to know that God is in it, not just you. The other thing that he's doing is it's symbolic in Hebrew nature that a double portion would go to the firstborn son. It was a sign of his position, his leadership, his power, his authority over the estate. And so what Elisha is asking of Elijah is not just specific and bold. What he's saying is, I know that Israel needs a leader when you're gone, and I want to be that leader. I'm not going to shy away from it. If you've noticed in that passage, what are the other prophets doing? They're staying put the whole time. They're not actively going after what they see coming. They're not actively trying to be the leader they know Israel's going to need. They stay on the other side of the Jordan. They just want to sit back and watch. And Elisha says, I will not sit back and watch. I'm going to be right next to you the whole time, and I know that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So give it to me. The third thing I want to point out is picking up your mantle. See, it's not just enough that he'd asked for the mantle. It's not just enough that Elijah tells him, what you've asked for, I can't give you, but the Lord can. So if you're next to me, if you fulfill your commitment to me, then surely the Lord will grant it to you. But it's not just enough that he gets it. See, when Elijah gets taken up in the whirlwind, he doesn't drape the mantle over Elisha's face or throw it around his neck. He doesn't actually give it to him. It falls off of him as he goes up the chariot ride up to heaven. Why is that important? It's important because it's, confirming that the Lord is the one that is giving the mantle to Elisha. Because if Elijah did it, it may look cooler. It might have been a fun moment for the two of them. But instead, it falls off of him. Elisha has to pick it up. So not only did the Lord give it to him, he had to take the responsibility himself. He had to actively do it. He had to say yes to the leadership. He was probably, I think, staring at it for about 10, 20 seconds going, am I sure I want this? Do I really want that? I think so. I'm going to do it. Picks it up, puts it around his own neck. He has to take responsibility, and we have to take responsibility. It's not enough. I mean, how often I find myself doing this all the time, and then I have to laugh later when the Lord reminds me, hey, you did that thing again. where I go, Lord, if only you would do this. If only you would do this. Could you do this? And then you do nothing about it. Well, maybe the Lord has already given you something and is actually waiting for you to take it. Maybe he's given you the answer to something you've prayed for already. Maybe he's given you the direction you need. And it's your responsibility to go over, walk over, pick up that mantle and put it on. Maybe you see a problem in society, in the church, in the city, in the community, and you think, man, if only somebody else would do it. Well, hey, maybe you're the somebody else. Maybe we're supposed to actually take responsibility. Maybe that's what maturity with Jesus looks like, is picking up the mantle that nobody else wants to pick up. The other thing that's interesting about that is it's symbolic and prophetic of what's going to happen later. See, Jesus ascends up to heaven. He comes, he dies, he raises again, he visits with the disciples, and then 40 days later, back up to heaven. And what does he do? He sends the Holy Spirit down. Just like the mantle coming down from Elijah's chariot, here comes the Holy Spirit. But what does the Holy Spirit not do? He doesn't force himself. You have to pick him up, if you will. You have to take him for yourself. See, we can recognize, we can be there with Jesus every step of the way, but until we say, I want you, I want this is my mantle in life, it just sits there waiting. A gift from heaven waiting to be picked up and taken by everybody and everywhere in any situation. It's not just, the problems of this world are not just problems. We know that there's going to be issues that always sustain, right? Even Jesus says you will always have the poor with you, right? That doesn't mean that there aren't steps that we can take. There's not a responsibility that we have here on earth. There may always be people that reject the gospel. That doesn't mean that we don't tell them about the gospel or share the gospel with them. And that doesn't mean that we just let what's happening in society or in our government or in any our business, your company. That doesn't mean we just sit back and let it happen. You've got to boldly request for the Lord to give you that which he has for you to have. And you've got to stay committed to the call of God on your life. But you've got to pick up your mantle. You've got to find those moments, those situations where the Lord has said, actually, I want you to do something. And then he'll sit back and wait for you to pick it up. And, you know, it was kind of funny. What I do with Changed, a lot of people in our movement have walked away from an LGBTQ lifestyle. Right? That's their story. That is not my story. If that's your story, then I'd love to meet you, talk to you, maybe share some more about Changed. But it's not my story. It's not something I ever saw myself doing, quite frankly. I've always thought I'd be in a public policy, but I never thought I would be doing this very specific type of public policy. And I was working at a church. I was on staff at a church for a couple years, and I was about to go to bed one night, and this woman's name came across my mind. You know, just briefly, the Lord didn't add anything to it. It was just her name. I thought, well, that's weird. I haven't thought about her in a couple years. It was a teacher I'd had back in ministry school. Hadn't seen her in 2 or 3 years. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I was going to bed, and her name popped in my head again. And I thought, wow, that is strange. A few more weeks go by, same thing. There's never anything attached to it. There's never a thought. It's just her name. I just keep thinking about this lady that I haven't seen in a few years, and I thought, man, this is so weird. Well, you know, honestly, I feel like I have a decent radar of when the Lord is talking to me, and it took me months to figure out, well, this might be you. This is really weird. So sure enough, after about 6 months of fighting the Lord on it, it's 3 months before I went, okay, this might be you, and then 3 months of me going, what am I supposed to do with this lady's name? There's nothing attached to it. Finally, one night, it was like I was prophesying to myself unknowingly. I couldn't shake her name out of my head, and I said, okay, Lord, the next time I see this lady, I don't care where it is, I'm going to walk up to her and I'm going to tell her she's supposed to hire me. And I don't even need a job. I don't know why she would hire me. None of that, but that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? That was a Saturday night. The next morning at the 8 o'clock Sunday service, she's sitting 3 rows in front of me and gets called out from stage to stand up, and everybody applauds her. And I went, dang it. It's not even been 12 hours. You put her right in front of me like a beacon, you know. And sure enough, I did it. And I told her, listen, I've never done this before. And this is, even for me, this is a little audacious, but you're supposed to give me a job. And she said, that's weird. All right, well, let's talk about that, you know. And that's how I got here. That's literally how I got to working for Changed, was the Lord just put a bug in my ear for 6-7 months. And then I went through an interview process. It wasn't like she'd heard the Lord immediately, you know. It was just me. And I told her, listen, I know it's weird, but this is what it is. But it might take you a while to pick up that mantle. That's what the Lord was doing with her name in my ear, was, hey, there's an opportunity that I think you should try. I think you'd be good at. There's something for you to do there. And I finally picked it up. I don't think the Lord was upset. It took me 6 months. It ended up actually being the perfect time, apparently. I think there's little bugs in everybody's ear of things that the Lord is waiting for you to pick up, and he's cheering you on. Hey, that's for you. Don't let everybody else sit by and watch. You be the one to pick it up. Jesus, thank you for an amazing Sunday. Lord, we thank you for the mantles in our life that you have called us to pick up.